You don't have business problems. You have personal problems that show up in your business.
Hey, Carol.
Hey, Rob.
Here we are again.
Here we are again.
Yeah, this is a good one. So
Yes.
I sent you this. Yeah, you're going to love this. So a good friend of mine, Bart Fanelli, he's the CEO of and co-founder of Skillibrium. He put up an article on LinkedIn. I'm like, this is pretty cool. Is an entitlement mindset holding back your company culture? We talk a lot about culture there, and this is all about do as I say, not as I do, that kind of thing, right? So really, it's about the top down and what kind of how we model for our employees. It's characterized by believing that the rules don't apply to everyone. They apply to you as an entitlement mindset. I'm the top salesperson, so I don't have to do Salesforce, or I don't have to follow the process. I've had people work for me all the time that did that, right? And if it's left unchecked, right, it becomes sort of a me first culture. I love that he said that, a me first culture, and not a collective, collaborative, high engaged culture. And then performance just degradates eventually. And this is when we see the high growth, early seed, high growth companies. You can kind of get away with it, right? Because maybe you've got 6 people and 2 of them are just like 500% of the number. And you're growing at 100%, 200% a year, blah, 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 blah. And you're able to kind of go under the radar like that. But as you get to be...
As you start scaling, yeah. You
start scaling, and then, God forbid, now you're a public company. All this really comes down to is this is a mindset that has to be from the top down, right? To ensure that everybody is sort of rowing at the same pace. To do an analogy from the cover of your great book. So, I mean, this is exactly what we talk about. So I'd love to get your take on sort of recruiting for this also, right? And building these cultures and your experience, and just take it from there and see where it goes. And, he gives some pretty good, ways to overcome it, but I wanted to find out sort of what you think.
So, and this is a great article. And when I got it from you, I thought, this wasn't an epiphany for me, especially for somebody who does the work I do, right? At the leadership level, right? And when I do discovery with a company, I always include the board because that's really important. And he talks about this entitlement mindset culture. And I remember hearing a story from somebody I'd known for a long, long time, who I don't know if he still works for IBM, but at that time worked for IBM. And let me just point out that I'm not just calling out IBM. This happens in, to his point, in so many companies, right? I would assert well over 50%, just based on my 32 years of experience.
Well, I would agree.
Yeah. So he said to me, the people at the top levels of IBM don't have the first clue what's going on down in the trenches at the field level. They got their cushy jobs. They're making, they're making a really good income, and, they don't want to upset that apple cart. Right. And, a lot of, just having heard that story from this person, I thought, yeah, I mean, this is just like you said, this is the do as I say, not as I do. Like, where do you get that? Where do you get that arrogance and entitlement?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, and you know what that is? I think that is if we look at leadership versus management, I look at that as people who have a management mindset, and there are CEOs, founders who have a management mindset rather than a leadership mindset. That management mindset is you work for me, as opposed to a leadership mindset, which is I work for you.
Right.
I'm the guy. I may be helping. I may be steering the ship. Or steering that crew. Right, as you pointed out on the front of my book. Yeah. But the reality is, those people I'm their employee, not the other way around. And that's what I think Bart is saying here.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to when people tell me I'll get calls all the time. Hey, I got my first leadership job. I've got a team now, and I'm like, congratulations, you're now the second most important person in the room.
That's great. Exactly.
And there's a pause, right? And they're like, "What do you mean?" I go, "Well, then that's the wrong answer, by the way."
Right. Yeah.
But
Yeah. Second most important person in the room.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, that's true, and
Yeah, of course.
I think that what Bart's mission is really to bring a platform to the marketplace that really is ensuring that you do get an investment, a significant investment in ongoing onboarding and coaching and leadership coaching. And it's not just the sales process, it's the coaching of the process and the remediation and the learning. And it's a circle. It's a whole circle, right, that you're going through all the time, and it's never stops. And that's the important part. And I think, the do as I do, not, do as I say, not as I do we've all worked for leadership like that.
Yes.
And that goes back to, again, I'm a broken record, but it goes back to the lack of an engaged culture. And we know that an engaged culture means more profitability. There was, the Gallup study that I always cite. I think it was 2013 or 16. They do it every year. But when I read that one, they did a series of companies. I think it was 1,000 companies that they interviewed, and they went through a whole series of questions and identified those companies' cultures, and the ones that were engaged were 22% more profitable. So, that should get the attention of the boardroom. That should get the attention of Mahogany Row. And no one's beating that desk. No one's beating that drum saying, I don't think you guys understand that it's not just that you have to do it. It's because it's profitable as well. Wouldn't you want to hear more about that?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the message. I like that's my message, right? The engaged culture is not just because we want to get fluffy and be servant leadership and, go in and, I talk about love and business all the time, but
right.
The reality is it's profitable.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you want to at least know about it?
Exactly. Right. So, it's interesting because I'm sure I've said it here before. One of my great coaches said to me, "You don't have business problems; you have personal problems that show up in your business."
Yeah, it's very true.
And it's really true. And I think about the world we live in now. Okay, and I'm not going to talk about politics. I'm going to talk about politicians in general, and I think you'll agree. Talk about an entitlement mindset. They're all running around on all sides, I might add. They're running around lying to people, telling people they're going to do stuff, but know how they're not going to do something. People coming into Congress, making what, $120,000 a year or whatever it is, leaving Congress, multimillionaires.
Right.
Well, how do you think that happens?
Sure.
Oh, because I get stock under the what do they call that when you're getting illegal stock tips?
Insider trading.
Thank you. I don't know. I just completely lost my brain. It was basically, it is not basically, it is insider trading, right? So they're getting stock tips and becoming multimillionaires while they're in Congress. So, that's, and then they have the balls to prosecute someone else for it.
Right.
Please.
Yeah.
That I think is probably the best example of entitlement mindset right there, our politicians.
Yeah, I don't think you're that far off, and I think that when you look back in your career of leaders, and the good ones and the not so good ones, they probably had the same kind of personality, and that, I always considered myself somebody that would lead within. We'd all sort of charge together with a common vision, common mission, a common why we're doing it, and that's the most powerful leadership role you can have.
Of course.
And, leading from afar or leading from the front. I don't agree with it. I don't agree with it. I always used to say that the ecosystem or the family was beside me. They weren't behind me. I was no better than them. It's sort of my my program speak. Being sober now over 31 years, you can learn from everybody. The person that just walked in the room will share, I've got 31 years, and I'll sit back and go, damn, that was profound. And I learned something from that person. And I realized that I only have one day. That's all I've got. And tomorrow I'll have another day. And that's what leadership is all about. It's the fact that we need to learn from everybody. And then you blow this up, right, Carol? We got inclusion. We've got different perspectives, different biases. All this stuff comes together, and that's real inclusion, right? It's the different perspectives that come around the table.
Mm-hmm.
And when they're all there for merit, they're all there because they know what they're doing. I never, ever want to be the smartest person in the room.
Right.
And that, right. And that's all about this. And a person that's got an entitlement mindset believes they probably are the smartest person in the room.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And you know what, to go back to the, we live in a world, and, anybody who, if you're on social media, if you watch news, anywhere, you see this going on in politics, right? But then we wonder why people are running companies this way. Well, they're doing it and it's okay. So why can't I?
Right.
I mean, it's really a problem. I as this will go on to social media, right? It'll go on to, the YouTube channel. We'll put it onto LinkedIn and so on.
Sure.
As well as the streaming services. But, I'm a real believer in, I think social media has done far more damage than it has good.
Oh, right on.
I really do. I mean, I may have people, people becoming zillionaires on TikTok and other things being influencers. What the F is it? Like, really? Here's an idea. Use your brain for some critical thinking.
Right.
Instead of being part of the nation of sheep.
Well, I mean, look, it's perpetuating. It's not
really.
Some of it's not even their fault, right? If somebody's going to give me $1 million to post a picture of myself with a tie that, a specific tie or a blazer, glasses, they want to give me $1 million to post one post, and that's what they're getting. Some of these influencers, sometimes 5 million. Kardashian, what is she getting? It's ridiculous. One post. So that's what's going on in the world, and we see that. And everything is related. It's all intertwined. This is not a vacuum that we're seeing.
Yeah.
And that's why this is bleeding into business. Who you are in your personal life is who you are in your business life. I say that every single chance I get. So you need to establish that coaching model, right? That,
yes.
As Bart talks about, the aligned onboarding, the skills training, and leadership coaching, right? Maintaining, you've got to have an objective measure of performance. That's so key. Skill, whatever it is. And that's really important. And it's got to be objective, and it's got to be merit-based. That's how you build a consistent message and a consistent language. I say that all the time. What's your language as a leader? Is it consistent? And that's the key. When things get tough, I found what saved me was the fact that my language was always consistent.
Yes.
I never wavered. Wavered.
Right. And that's why, I believe that at the lowest common denominator of all of this is communication, right? If you want to get 150% out of your people, you create a leadership culture, not a management culture, right? Because again, in the management culture where, oh no, you work for me, right? You're the second most important person in the room. Well, who's the most important? Your whole team is the most important.
That's right.
Right?
That's right. That's
so, instead of getting, a distracted, disengaged team giving you maybe 20% what they're capable of, you start to get 150% out of your people. And I cannot tell you the numbers of, leaders I've talked to over the years that are like, yeah, coaching's not a priority. And I think, wow, you just don't, or, we don't want to spend the money on that. Really? Do you know how much more money that's going to bring you?
Yeah.
Like over 100% more than you're probably making right now.
No, you're right. I mean, I just cited the Gallup, right? I mean, there's tons of those studies that talk about the profitability and leading the right way. I love what Bart said. Of course I know him. I love him. He's a beautiful soul. And he talks about coaching privately, and I get that. We all want to do that. And you want to make those tough decisions as soon as possible to gracefully move those people out of the business and help them find other alternatives. You don't just cut them off at the knees. But here's, this is the last one. The last point he made, I love it. And it's reward those doing it right and have them coach and mentor others. Because now what you're doing is you're fostering leadership within.
Right. I agree.
I love that.
I completely agree.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
Who's your next leader? You know?
Right. Well, right. You know, and that's really what he's talking about there is what I call succession planning.
Well, exactly. No, it's
Right?
true. And, you know,
That's what that is.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
succession planning.
that is the ultimate right there. And, you know, when I went to London, I only had 2 years. So
Right.
day one, guess what I focused on? Day one, I had in the back of my head, I was always looking, always mentoring, always challenging.
Who's going to succeed you?
Day one, because I
Yep.
knew I wasn't going to be there forever. And we should all think like that because no job is forever, right? So,
No.
and I think I want to get your take on this, but the best quote in the whole article is the best leaders in the world have management courage. I love that. Have management courage. They check their egos at the door, and that's a servant leader. And
it's a vulnerable leader.
Yeah, but being vulnerable
and it's an authentic
trust.
leader.
It's authentic. It's vulnerable, and those two things will help also build trust.
Right.
That's what we're really talking about here. Do you trust somebody that's entitled? Do you trust somebody that is, do as I say, not as I? You never would. You never would.
No.
So in this whole article, that's the underlying word here. It's trust. And the trusting culture is the highly collaborative culture. It's the vulnerable culture. It's the fail. Doug Merritt, CEO of Splunk years ago, he said, fail fast. I took it. I said, fail fast and fail forward. You're always learning. You're always going forward. Fail fast, fail forward. And that's the kind of culture you have to really, really foster. And if you have an entitlement mindset, it's never, ever going to happen.
No, you're right. People, you have to think, your new employees and, maybe your younger employees and they may be looking up at that CEO in the ivory tower going, wow, what are they thinking about? And, and I mean, this is where a culture of feedback is super important. And it has to be generated by the CEO and it has to be continually demonstrated.
Right. You have to walk the walk.
Well, of course you do. Is there anything else we want to talk about on this? It's really a great topic.
I love it. And I love that he put that out there. When I saw it, I said, well, I'm going to give him kudos and let's give him a plug because he's doing some amazing things. And for those who want to know more, Skillibrium.com, but we'll put it in the show notes because they're doing some really cool stuff when it comes to coaching and mentoring and, and learning and doing it in a way that's never been done before. So it's a process, but it's also the coaching. And that's what we need, right?
Yes.
Because there's so many leadership roles and so many managers that get thrown into that first line management job.
Right,
and
which both of us did.
Well, yeah, I did. And I got my first leadership job at 27 because I was the top sales guy. But that didn't mean I could lead. I had no idea what I was doing,
Well, right. And then again, same thing with me.
Yeah. Then I became a super rep. So I worked, at 20 hours a day instead of 12,
Yeah.
No one wants that. So I love this article. I think it's a good one and I'm glad we talked about it. But yeah, so that's what I would say.
Yeah. I do want to leave one final point on this, because we both talk about coaching a lot. I've been doing it a long time. As well as you. And I think that what people have to realize is that when you look for a coach, I've written about this in Inc. right in my column in Inc., which is what are the questions you need to ask a potential executive coach, right? If you're thinking about hiring them, right? Because there are so many people who, I just got laid off after 25 years. I think I'll go be a coach. We've talked about that. They don't have any training or they have very little training. They think what they've been doing is coaching when it's really just mentoring or advising. It's very, very, coaching is very, very different. And you have to really, when you're interviewing coaches, talk to them. How do they look at what coaching actually is? And hear what they have to say. And you know what? Ask them if they'll give you a free session. If they're unwilling to, I would say, yeah, maybe not the right person for you.
Yeah. By the way, I give free sessions all the time.
Yeah. It's really, really important. Put your money where your mouth is. If you really know what you're doing, have a session with somebody. You think it's going to kill you?
And you want to do
money
it
well spent. Time well spent. Time is money.
Time well spent, but you want to do it anyways because you want to make sure there's a fit there from the personality.
That's right. Well, there's no question about that, right? And the reality is both of us. You talk about having that servant leader mindset. I don't use that terminology, but it's certainly correct. Is that you want to give right to people. And, I've been doing that for a long, long time. So have you. And that's really what, I mean, in part, that's what giving that session out, offering it to somebody, I'm happy to spend 45 minutes or an hour with you. Let's work on something.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Yep.
You don't want to hire me. That's fine. But as long as I leave you in a place that's better than when we started this conversation, you don't know when that's going to come back for you. I've had people say, well, when you do stuff for people, they feel obliged to do something for you. I'm like, no, they don't.
No,
Never.
they don't.
I think that's completely off track.
Right.
Not in this day of selfishness.
I mean, plus, you're just passing it on.
Right.
Yeah, you're setting expectations at the beginning. Look, I'm going to give you this hour of my time because I really want to. I want to help you, right? So, if there's not a connection, I completely understand. There's no hard feelings. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that's and frankly, if you're doing it in order to, let's put that in quotes, in order to get something back, that's what I call manipulation.
Yeah, that's not good. That's not good at all.
It's not good.
And there's so many. I mean, one of my most popular talks is the give versus get principle, and I talk about that for customers and engagement, and also employee engagement.
Yeah.
So I'm a big believer of give versus get.
Yeah.
It's one of my core values is to contribute and to give back. So I agree with it, and the universe rewards you. I believe that.
I agree. Yeah. All right.
Good.
Enough said.
All right, Carol, that was a great one.
It was. Hopefully everybody will like it.
So.
Let us know. We want to hear what?
Let's hope they think so.
Let's hope they think so. All right. Keep us posted, people. We want to hear your comments and questions and so on and so forth. You know how to find us. It's in the show notes.
Yeah, challenge us. Let's go.
Ciao. Thanks for listening to Evolving Your Workplace After Hours. I'm your host, Carol Schultz.
And I'm your co-host, Rob Swymer. Don't forget to click follow to hear more. And please leave us an honest review and rating so we can continue to improve and bring you more great stories.
Thanks again for listening and see you next time.